Maybe you have tomorrow off because it's a federal holiday, but it's President's Day, and there's so much more to the day than that. It is a day that we pay tribute to some of the nation's greatest leaders. Both presidents, Abraham Lincoln and George Washington, were born in February. And while everyone remembers learning about these two great Americans in school, you may be surprised at what you don't know about them. Presidential historian and author Doug Wead is kind enough to join us today with more. Great to see you, Doug. Thanks.
Thank you, Jamie. Great to be with you.
So we know that there are sales. We know that it's a holiday. Many people have off school or off work, but there is so much more to this holiday. Tell us when it first began.
Well, it began with George Washington, not only while he was alive, but while he was still in power. It was the last year of his presidency, and when the American people and his colleagues saw that he was serious about leaving, he was not going to be a king, he was not going to be president in perpetuity, he was leaving, then the last year in office, they declared a holiday and they celebrated his birthday, and they did that all the way up into modern times.
And he could have been king, as you said, and chose not to. So he got a holiday in his honor, initially just President Washington. Do we have any idea historically how he felt about it?
No, in general, he was a very private man. He was very reluctant to take a lot of acclaim, and he had a lot of personal issues that I suppose our attitude toward Washington reveals more about us than it does about him. For example, as a young man, he was in love with his neighbor's wife. We now know in studying history that when he was retiring to Mount Vernon, he was in correspondence with her, trying to get her to move next to him. So, history is as complicated as human lives are, but it is very unusual to walk away from power. The Bushes, the Clintons, the Kennedys, into modern times, Putin, people do not give up power. They have to be thrown out. But here was someone who walked away from power, and that was an object lesson for us, and we celebrated it.
And I know that you didn't interview President Washington, but you have interviewed a number of presidents in your career. Tell us about President Lincoln and something we may not know about him.
Well, I think people in general misunderstand how controversial he was in his lifetime. He was regularly referred to as a buffoon in the newspapers. His election was considered an aberration only because of the split in the Democrat Party of North and South. Someone from a completely new party was elected president. One of his own cabinet officers referred to him as "our dear imbecile" in his private correspondence with his wife. But upon his death, like Washington, when we were sure he was gone, the year after his assassination, we celebrated his birthday as a national holiday, and the immortalization of Abraham Lincoln began. All the things people criticized, they suddenly saw genius in them, and we embraced him. It's still good. In most countries of the world, they never recognize their leaders. Well, there's no Winston Churchill holiday in the UK, but we do come to terms with our leaders and find the best in them.
That was going to be my next question, is whether there's anything that marks it similarly in other countries. But I wonder, since you have met and had a chance to sit down and talk to so many presidents, and you worked for at least one that we know of, George H.W. Bush, correct? I wonder, how do the other presidents feel about the fact that these two get a holiday in their honor? You think they want in on the action?
Well, we're all human beings, and there's an element of pride, but I don't think any aspire in their own lifetime. They recognize the fact that you got to be gone before you get that kind of acclaim. It's very interesting, Jamie, that of our presidents, 26 were lawyers, 28 were in the armed forces, 10 were actually generals, and so these presidents come from an adversarial experience. That's what's unique about them. They're not artists, and artists can perform on his or her own, but these presidents are made, and they emerge from adversarial, from combat experience. They know how to adapt to an opponent, and they have that in common.
And I bet it's a job that you learn if you don't have it when you go in, resilience. Doug Wead, thank you so much for being with us today. And do you say Happy President's Day?
Yes, you can.
Okay,
and happy Valentine's Day, Jamie.
Oh, thank you so much. Great to see you. Take care.
Thank you.